Hold up. Okay, all right, finally that's recording. Okay, guys, today got a slightly different format today. I've got a guest on the channel, Jody here. We was having a conversation on one of my videos recently. I can't remember which one it was. It was the 5 reasons to never get back with your ex after a breakup. And I've made comments in previous videos where I'll say, 90% of all relationships have failed, and Jody made some good points, basically saying, well, if 90% of them fail, then what's the point in getting in a relationship? It's just procreation. So we had a bit of back and forth in the comments. Conversation was going well. We was having a good discussion. So I thought it'd be cool to record the continuation of that. So Jody, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thank you. How are you?
Cool. I'm very well. I'm very well. Thanks for joining today. I really appreciate it. You giving to the channel and to myself, and I hope everybody gets a good listen out of this, because I think these kind of things have to be discussed. It's great that people are listening to the channel and also saying, "Oh, well, look, I agree, but there are things that I disagree with," and I'm more than happy to talk that out. So I'm going to hand it over to you first, buddy. So do you want to start off by just letting everybody know what you think about relationships and like maybe why they fail, and just give us a bit of your background? We were discussing backstage about some of the background, so if you just want to open with that, and then we can get into the crux of it, really.
Sure. Okay. Well, like we were discussing, like you said, backstage, I came across your channel, I'd say 10 months ago, something like that. And I went through a breakup just over a year ago, and that was probably the worst breakup I've ever had, actually. That really affected me quite badly. And so, as you do, initially you're looking at all the ex-back stuff. And then that transitions after a while into like help for getting over it and trying to forget about them and all that kind of stuff. And eventually I came across your channel. So a lot of your channel did help me. You gave some really good advice. And then, yeah, so recently, obviously, like I was explaining backstage, these videos still keep coming up because you've been watching them so much in the past. So YouTube ends up suggesting them. And, your video about 5 reasons not to get back with an ex, but which, by the way, I agreed with all your reasons. So that came up in my feed. I clicked on it, watched it, agreed with all of that. And then I made a comment just because you said one of the reasons for not getting back with an ex was that 99% of reconciliations fail.
I think it was like around 95%. I think I said.
Oh, was it 95? Okay.
Yeah,
it was a high figure.
It's a high figure. Yeah. I mean, it's a 90% point, but yeah, it's a high figure.
But then what piqued my interest there was then, well, you also said, well, 90% of relationships fail. Full stop. Now, that's really only a 5% difference. And you were giving that as an example. Well, if you were going into, what was it, surgery or something, and the doctor only gave you a 5% chance of success or whatever it was, would you actually do that? Well, then I think my comment was, well, I wouldn't do that at 10% either.
Yeah.
And that's what started our discussion, wasn't it? It was...
Yeah. So I think I think we was agreeing more than we was like. I wouldn't even call it a disagreement, really. It was just like it's an interesting.
It was just a chat, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just an interesting point of discussion. And the reason I thought it would be cool is because it was such a good discussion. I was really enjoying the back and forth. Like, it was just sticking to the point. Both of us were putting forward some good points there. So I think that the main point of contention, if I remember correctly, you said something along the lines of, well, what's the point of having a relationship then if most of them are just going to fail? And I think
I had 2 points from your video that kind of amalgamated together into why I posted the comment. So the first one was the statistic. And then the second one was your point about love and validation, which I'm not saying is wrong. I think it is healthy to have self-love and things like that. But when you put that together, and if you don't want children, I mean, you're looking at a very high failure rate for nothing, essentially, because if you're saying that love should come from yourself, then what's the benefit unless you want children, was my original point. Now, I'm sure there's other nuances, but, you know, that's about as deep as you can go on YouTube comments, really, without writing an essay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hence this this recorded session today. So yeah, to answer that, so I think the first thing that we really need to look at is why are so many relationships failing out there? And I typically have found in my experience is that we have very, very sadly forgotten how to self-love and self-validate first, taking care of the self first. So we're finding partners and we're outsourcing all of that to them, and that's not sustainable, and it would typically fail. So my argument is look, try and get at least 80% of that from yourself, and then the partner piece, should be one of the most important parts of your life. And yeah, it should feel great, but they're making up the last 10-20%. And yeah, you should get some validation from them, and you should get a lot of love, and that's absolutely fine. But I
think when you hear a lot of these YouTube videos, especially when you're going through a breakup, and you're not the only one, everyone is saying love should come from within and you should love yourself first and all of that kind of stuff. It comes across like it should be 100%. That's really how they sound.
Okay, well,
so maybe it's a misinterpretation of the message.
It could be, or it could be it's not being communicated correctly. So if that's, I can only speak for my channel personally, but if that is coming across that it should be 100%, no, I definitely wouldn't agree with that, because we are social creatures. We seek companionship. That's what we're genetically coded for. That we're genetically coded to seek.
The social side, I agree, but that can come from friendship. That doesn't need to be a relationship.
I would agree and disagree with that, but I would also say that there isn't, how can I put this? There isn't a connection like a connection that you'd have with a wife or a husband or a long-term partner or a significant other. That just goes to the next level. Someone that you are comfortable doing everything with and comfortable doing nothing with. It's how many.
That's kind of what intimacy is, isn't it? It's, when you're discounting the physical side of intimacy, it's knowing someone on a very deep level.
Absolutely. So it's a case of like how many of your male friends would you be comfortable doing nothing with? You're normally doing some kind of activity with them, like going for a drink or watching a movie or whatever. But when you're with a long-term partner and the honeymoon phase is worn off, and you're getting into a stable routine, and I do generally believe that what I've come across, the most successful relationships are quite mundane, and they are the ones that they're comfortable doing nothing with each other, but still maintaining what I would call a single life outside of that relationship. Now, I don't mean getting with other people, but they're still maintaining that sense of self, that person that they originally fell in love with. And I believe that to be a fundamental problem with modern day relationships, is just we're auditioning people to fill these giant emotional holes within us.
Yeah, that's possibly true. I wouldn't say that's true in my case. I mean, I'd say my breakup happened almost for the opposite reason, as in I was too much that way.
Okay, are you comfortable going a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of reasons for the breakup, and she monkey branched and all of that side of it. So we're not on talking terms or anything like that. Right. But I would say I was always quite independent, still am. And she was always looking for more. And when I say this, right, this is coming now from hindsight. When I was in it, I didn't really realize. But she was always looking for more reasons for me to need her.
Right. That's interesting.
And it was quite regular. Like I said, I didn't notice it at the time, but you know how you remember just more specific details after a relationship. You don't remember all the day-to-day stuff so much, but there was certain things that she was always, you know, she'd do anything for me to see her more and more and more. Whereas I was quite happy just being sort of fairly independent.
Sounds like, yeah, sounds like
she was quite needy. My sister said she was quite needy.
Yeah. So would it be fair to say then that maybe on that level, okay, so you're like fiercely independent. So would it be a case of like, look, I'm cool with once a week, but she wanted to see you 3 times a week? Is it kind of like that dynamic?
Yeah. I mean, I was seeing her, well, once, twice a week, the odd weekend kind of thing. And I was perfectly happy with that, to be honest with you. You know,
and how long were you guys together?
Just short of 7 years.
All right. Okay. So so after 7 years, you had no plans to live with each other or anything like that, or move to?
Well, we couldn't really. It was financially we couldn't. She had kids, and I've got kids from a previous relationship.
Right.
And if we tried to live together, the finances wouldn't have worked.
Right. Okay.
That would not have worked at all. Now, I was happy to sort of wait for down the line kind of thing when the kids got older, but I don't think she was.
Right. Okay. All right. That's quite interesting. So, do you think it was a compatibility issue mainly? As in,
I think there were a lot of issues.
Yeah.
I didn't at the time, like I said, but in
Yeah.
hindsight, I think that there were definitely issues. There were. She often said, I wouldn't say often, but certain conversations have stuck out. Like she would always accuse me of preferring the bachelor life, which I'm not saying is wrong, but I was in a committed relationship with her. And it went as far as it could go due to our circumstances.
Right.
So there were incompatibilities in what we both wanted, but I would say she was living in more of a fantasy land, and not really seeing the reality. I'm quite a logical person.
Yeah.
And so if things are trying to progress in a certain direction, I'm going to be looking at this thinking, does this actually make sense, on a logical level, or is this going to completely bankrupt me kind of thing? And it would have been that kind of thing. Now, there were other reasons as well. But I think that was the crux of probably why she wasn't happy. Whereas I was perfectly happy with the way things were.
Yeah. Logic and feelings don't mix very well, unfortunately.
They don't. And she was definitely a very emotional woman. Very emotional.
And that's fine. I guess it just comes down to, how much emotion are you okay with in that dynamic. But it does seem to me that, it was interesting that you said that she was finding ways for you to need her more. Now, I would actually say that, I mean, that's a void. This is where it comes back to self-love and self-validation. See, if she actually had, I don't know, like if she had actually had her shit together a little bit more, and excuse the bad language there, but then I think she would have been okay. Well, this is Jody. This is how he is. I don't need to force him to need me. I can take care of a large part of that myself. I can take care of part of this validation of myself. But it would seem to me that if she was trying to find ways to get you to need her more, that's a reflection of her. That's in a weird way, she's trying to get that external validation by getting you to need her more.
I would agree with that. She, like I said, I could give examples of where she was quite needy. She was the type of partner where if you're in bed together, she wouldn't let go of you. She always had to be touching you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a crude way. I just mean just touching.
Yeah, no, I get you. Like holding your hand, plugging. I get that. Yeah.
It was constant. She always had to do that. So, and I found it exhausting from time to time. Not enough to want to break up, I did love her quite a bit. Like I said, this was probably the hardest breakup. And I think the level of the breakup, at least from my experience in life, kind of indicates how attached you were sort of on an emotional level.
Yeah. Did you?
And I was very much in love with her.
Okay. Yeah. I can tell. I can tell by the way you're talking about her. So did you ever discuss it with her about, like the neediness and, I constantly need to be closer? And did you have that discussion?
No. And I think, like I said, some of this is because it's ended and I'm looking back in hindsight. And obviously, like I said, my sister pointed out that she thought she was quite a needy person. And when I was in it, you know the old saying, you're kind of blinded by love.
You don't see it. Yeah, you don't see it. Yeah.
I just didn't really see it. And I suppose, I'll be honest, I suppose even when I did see it sometimes, it felt kind of good to be really needed.
Yeah, of course, because then you're getting the external validation there. Then it does feel.
It was a bit of an ego boost.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's okay. That's okay to be. It's okay to feel. Oh, yeah, my partner wants me. I mean, that's totally okay, and I think that should be happening. It's just a degree of okay, how much is it happening? How much am I willing to give up here? And I've actually got a piece of content coming out this week. It might be tomorrow or the day after. I can't remember now. So basically I pre-upload, so it automatically uploads for me. So I haven't got to worry about it. And it's basically it's about why you should never give 100% to a relationship, because it's not sustainable.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can only give.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you can only give your 50%. But what people do, they give
even 50%. I mean, that would be your half of it. I don't think that's sustainable. If you're talking about 50% each, and that makes you 100%. I mean, beyond the honeymoon period, other life happens.
Yeah,
you've got work to do. You can't give 100. Your 100%, which would be 50%, I guess, is what you're saying. But I don't think that's sustainable at all.
So what I'm saying is, a lot of the premise of the content is that a lot of people will give 100% of themselves, and I hear this all the time in my one-to-one coaching sessions. It comes up so many times, and they're like, Nick, I gave 100% to that relationship, and I said, right, that was your problem. They didn't fall in love with that person. They fell in love with a person that had shit going on, and now you abandoned all that, and you gave everything to that relationship. And if you're given 100% and they're given 100%, that's 200%. That's not sustainable. You give 50. They give 50, you've got 100. And the 50 that's left over is for you, for your growth, for your career, for your hobbies, your friends, your family. This is what I'm trying to get out. So that's what I think, maybe, you was giving your 50% to that relationship, but keeping 50% back for you.
I wouldn't say always I was putting in effort, and it was my priority, but I wouldn't say I was giving 100%. I definitely wouldn't say that. I was the exact opposite to what probably most people that you talk to are. I was still very independent, still like doing my own thing. Yeah. Like I said, she was trying to get more of me. She was probably putting in, over the period of the relationship, probably more effort. Now, that doesn't mean I was neglectful or anything like that. I was putting in effort. It's not to how you're saying and what most of your viewers might be considering. It was probably a more healthy level, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And it sounds, I mean, on paper, it sounds fantastic. But do you think that if you actually had that discussion, like say, hey, look, I know you want more of me, but this is what I can give because I like to maintain this part of our life. Do you think maybe you guys would have stayed together if you just had that brutal, honest conversation about where the boundaries are?
That is really, really hard to say. She, like I said, she wanted more of me from an emotional side. I mean, she even said to me multiple times, I expect more effort. And I was putting in effort, but she was expecting me to like think up new date ideas literally every day, and it was exhausting. Wow. It was definitely tiring, and it was wearing on me. I mean, I've heard you say in previous videos, I think it's you anyway, like you might be thinking of breaking up 6 months before they actually do.
Yeah.
And yeah, that thought had occurred to me because I was exhausted.
Yeah.
But I chose, look, we've been together for a long time. I think that it's worth keeping going here. I guess it just wasn't enough of a trigger to make me stop. Perhaps.
I think that comes back to the logic versus emotion thing again, because I've definitely come across where most men that I coach, and I have a good balance of men and women that come to me, so I get quite a unique perspective on this. I typically find that men, and this certainly happened to me 2.5 years ago, the breakup that actually started all of this for me. It was that like 6 months before, well, not 6 months, maybe 4 months beforehand. I don't know, was it November? No, it was 6 months beforehand. Yeah. So yeah, 6 months beforehand, I was the one thinking about ending the relationship because I was just like, all right, this isn't for me anymore. But my logical brain's like, you kind of treat it like,
you've invested so much.
Yeah, invested so much. It's better that our resources stay together, that kind of thing. So, okay, stick it out, work on it. But what I typically find with women, it's the emotional side. If the emotional side checks out, there's no like, all right, cool, we've invested so much. It's kind of terminal when it comes to that. So this is where men and women very much differ when it comes to relationships. And I have typically found, and some would agree with this and someone, I have typically found in my experience that men are a lot more willing to tolerate, how can I put it?
Problems?
Yeah, more problems, more challenges in the relationship than women typically are. Now, there are outliers. There are exceptions to the rule. I've certainly come across women that they've been really badly abused physically, mentally, emotionally, and they put up with it for like 10 years. And yeah, that's definitely an outlier.
I've never understood that one.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're in that situation, I don't think anyone can really truly understand it. So when I'm coaching someone, whether I agree, disagree, or understand them, I just try to listen. So, that was a shit situation, and I'm sorry to hear that. At that particular time, understanding is not required. It's just like, all right, cool, I hear you. I'm here, kind of thing. So yeah, but I think these conversations, these conversations of compatibility, chemistry, and expectations have to be had. So and what I'm starting to get from you now is that maybe because
we definitely had chemistry. I'll put that one in there.
And chemistry's fine. And chemistry's fine. But what typically happens, either there's too much chemistry and not enough compatibility, or vice versa. There's like loads of compatibility but no chemistry. And we need a balance of the two. But just going back to what you said here, is that her expectations of you were getting higher and higher and higher. So she was saying, hey, look, I want a bit more. And you was happy to meet that to a certain level. Then she wants new date ideas every day. That's not sustainable.
No. Yeah. I mean, that might be a slight exaggeration, but when I say exaggeration, it is only a slight exaggeration. She was really like that. But it wasn't just that. It was more and more help constantly. And I feel bad for saying this. She was going through some chronic illnesses and things like that. And I stuck by her. I went to hospital with her whenever there was an issue or anything like that. I was always there for her. But she seemed to just want more and more of that time and emotional caring, I suppose, which I did. But I mean, this might be a fault of mine. I'm maybe not very good at showing it, perhaps.
Possibly.
She did say she needed someone more empathetic when she left.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So maybe, so look, maybe there's a bit of a perfect storm brewing here, is that you're again, and this comes down to compatibility, and this is where I tell people, look, you need to have these discussions within the first few dates, basically. Like, look, this is me, this is what I like, this is what I do, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not so good at. And
I might not be so good at that kind of thing. I tend to just go with the flow more. And so, I mean, I think I've mentioned in the comments, I've never really dated in the traditional sense of the word. It's relationships have always just kind of happened to me. They've just kind of fallen on me. It was never really something I've ever looked for. And I probably still wouldn't. In my experience so far, it's always kind of just, at least it's lasted longer. in that regard, because two people have just gradually fallen in love in what I would call a more natural way.
Yeah, and I do think that is probably still the best way to do it these days. You know, there's one thing I'm coming across.
I think
now,
dating apps are awful. By the way.
I do. I think. I mean, look, they're okay. Look, if you want to go and get laid, yeah, they're perfect. For anything more long term, not really. Again, there are exceptions to the rule. I do have a friend who met her husband on there, and they're quite happy. So there are exceptions to the rule, but you're playing the numbers game here. And here's the thing with dating apps: there's a difference between being good looking and being attractive. You know, so on a dating app, you've got to have good pictures, and you've got, like, you know, a bio 6 questions that you have to answer, and someone is assessing you based on a couple of pictures and what your bio says.
I would say I'm average looking, so I probably don't do as well in that environment. I'm better in person.
Exactly. Most of us are. Look, I'm average looking. I'm not ugly. I'm not ugly, but I'm not. But I know I'm not a Brad Pitt. But
yeah,
I know
no one's running towards you, but no one's running away either.
Exactly. I have to do a lot of heavy lifting with my personality, my humor, my brain, my intelligence, that kind of thing. Having conversations like this, and okay, look, I've got a brain on me, kind of thing. So with a dating app, it's like, how do you communicate that other side of you? So that's what I'm saying. There's a big difference between being good looking and attractive, because attractiveness is everything that you bring to the table. So if someone's
body language, isn't it, and things like that.
There's a body language. There's a confidence, how you carry yourself, how you dress. Even your job, your career.
Yeah.
Are you well read? What kind of interesting conversations can you have? For men, are you capable of leadership? That's part of the attractiveness. So
and you can't see that in a short bio on a dating.
No, absolutely not. And like I've done experiments on dating apps, and I've reported it on my channel. I actually did a video on it, and it was, you really have to play the numbers game on it. It's a big numbers game on it. And if you're willing to put the effort in, and you're on the dating app every day and just swiping on everything to get a match, then yeah, you can probably narrow down some candidates. But the hit rate...
I'll give you an interesting stat here. A friend of mine got out of a divorce a couple of years ago, and he really wanted to get into another relationship. And I would say he's just an average looking guy as well. And his approach was the dating apps. But he was telling me during the process how it was going. And the amount of effort he had to put in was astronomically high. It was ridiculous. Yeah. He was on there, I would say, for 3 or 4 hours. This is him telling me as well. It's not that I saw it. He was just telling me what he was doing. And, I'd message him and I'm back on the dating app. So he was saying he was doing it for 3 or 4 hours per day, every single day for a year before he got a girlfriend.
Jesus.
And I'm looking at that thinking, that's a huge amount of time and effort.
It really is.
Like you're saying, when you're coming across stats like, 90% of it fails anyway, and all the rest of those kind of stats, you're thinking that's not worth the effort. It just isn't.
Yeah, I agree, because and here's the sad fact, right? If that effort was spent on becoming a better person, a better man, a better woman, leveling up, working on your emotional stability, your finances, your physical health, and all that, you will naturally be more attractive, and you will probably naturally attract people in real life. As in, because if you're out there on your purpose, you're going to be out there meeting new people anyway, doing new hobbies, going volunteering or whatever, meeting friends of friends through work, school, whatever it is.
I must admit that side of things has always been a tricky one for me. I'm highly introverted and I'm incredibly private.
Yeah,
meeting people doesn't happen that often for me.
Yeah,
whether it's male or female, just in general.
Yeah, no,
I work from home as well.
Oh yeah, that makes it more challenging for sure.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of the same. I'm introverted as well, and I actually find social situations challenging sometimes. And it's not like I can't socialize.
I find it exhausting.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing with introverts. It's not like we don't like going out. It's just like being in social situations drains us. Where an extrovert, it actually boosts them up.
Yeah,
So
they get something out of it, so they're more
yeah, exactly.
motivated to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So what I mean, the way to get around that is to actually put yourself in those kind of situations. So like I said, volunteering, going to do a hobby where you, there's going to be people there doing the same
Yeah.
thing as you. So you got something to start a conversation about. At least you're all there to do the same thing. And I
I
think that's
probably should be doing that, but I'm
yeah,
terrible in that. I'll be like, I could just stay and read a book, watch a movie. I'm
yeah.
happy
So,
doing
so yes,
that.
yeah. No, I totally get that, and I've totally been there. But that's what happened. You know, what happens is we get too comfortable.
Yeah,
And if there's one thing if there's one piece of generic advice that I give to almost everybody is go and get uncomfortable. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Going to volunteer at the local dog shelter or the local soup kitchen is just a way of getting uncomfortable. And even if it's only for an hour, 1 hour on a Saturday, that will get you out. And the best way to become more social is to actually practice being social, is getting out there and just striking up a conversation. Now, I used to be really, really, really bad at it, and actually now I'm pretty good at it. I still feel massively uncomfortable doing it. But
yeah.
rather than running away from that,
I wouldn't say I'm bad at it. I can talk. It's just I am by nature introverted, and on top of that, incredibly private. I'm the type of person where I don't let people in unless I really think it's worthwhile, or there's something about you that I can trust, or
do you think? Would you say you've got an avoidant attachment style?
I've looked into that, and I don't know is the real answer.
Okay.
I have, obviously, through the breakup period, I was looking through all this stuff, and if anything, I would say my ex was an anxious attachment style.
Definitely,
yeah. So
but here's the crazy thing.
I would describe myself as highly independent and highly private.
Yeah.
But whether I'm actually avoidant or not, in terms of like a psychological definition, I don't know. Like I said, I was always there for her when she asked or when she needed. I didn't, run away from what I considered the duty of that commitment we'd made to each other.
Yeah. Well, I'd say attachments, it's a spectrum. I think, the old attachment style community said, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of credence to it. There's a lot of science behind it. But I do think sometimes too much is placed on it, because it is a spectrum. We've all got anxiousness inside us. We've all got some kind of avoidance. Now, I would consider myself reasonably secure now, but there are still times that I feel anxious, and there's still times that I get avoidant with certain situations. It's just a case of how we act. How do we respond to that kind of situation? But it would make sense that, typically speaking, anxious people and avoidance normally attract each other like magnets. And this comes up all the time. I would say.
Oh, well, I have heard that, but I don't know how that would happen, because I don't understand how she would know that in the beginning.
Well, it's not so much a knowing; it's more of a feeling. So look, I've been anxious most of my life, and it's only because over the last 2.5 years where I've done the coaching, I've done the therapy, and I've done all the research and self-help and all that kind of thing, really worked on it. And typically speaking, what with an anxious person is because it's typically like, right, okay, I don't know my value. I don't feel that I can bring any value. So what an anxious person would look for subconsciously is, a fixer-upper, a project that they can fix. So it's like, I see someone damaged over there, I can fix them. And that's typically an avoidant. So someone that is private, shut down, doesn't talk about their feelings, I can save that person. I can bring it out in them. And that's bullshit. You can't. So
she did say she always hoped things would change with me.
Yeah. So,
but then I've heard that about women in general. Like, men hope their women will never change, and women hope their men do.
Well,
kind of thing.
That
old saying.
Yeah, but you can't change it. You can't change anybody. It's not your job to fix anyone. It's not your exes or anybody else to fix anybody else. It's your job to fix you. It's my job to fix me, and it's their job to fix them. That's it. And that's why, getting back to the original point, why I'm saying 90% of all relationships out there are dog shit, is because for me, it's for this. It's multifaceted, but I generally believe this is why most people break up. And there's actually on Netflix, there's a comedian called Daniel Sloss, and he done a special called Jigsaw. Now, the whole show is about his dating life and relationships. And the main part of the show is that he's talking about life and relationships is like a jigsaw. So your life is like, so you don't know what the jigsaw is going to look like. So you start with the corners. You got friends, family, hobbies, interests, work, and all that kind of thing, right? That makes up the corners. And in the middle is the partner piece. But we don't know the shape of that jigsaw. So what happened with that jigsaw piece? So what happens is we find any jigsaw piece, any woman, any man, and we'll try and shove it into the middle, hoping that it's going to fix. And it's only when we've got a year, 2 years, maybe 10 years down the line, it's like, oh, fuck me, there's a dickhead in the middle of this jigsaw piece, because you force someone in there to try and match it. And basically the premise of that, what he's trying to get, what the comedian was trying to get at, is that we're not working on ourselves. And because we're not working on ourselves, we're auditioning someone to fill that hole. And then we get 5 years down the line, realize that we'd never fit, our jigsaws do not match, and that's it. And that's why people break up. But if people were to spend more time doing therapy and working on their shit, working on their own, emotional stuff, and hey, we've all got it. We've all got bullshit to work on. I'm still working on stuff. Got, Jesus Christ.
I think there's another side to that, though. And I think the reason people do that might be that, one, we're only alive for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Right. Now, depending on how social you are as well, like I said, I'm not that social at all. Other people, like you say, extroverts might be going out all the time. But even then, I know there's the old saying, oh, there's 4 billion women on the planet, 4 billion men, whatever, but you're never going to meet all of them. And so the number of people you can actually meet is actually quite limited.
Yeah.
So there's only so much time, and there's only so many options. I mean, for example, you might be attracted to someone, but if they're not into you, well, that's not really an option then either. So if you're limited by your options and you know how social you are and the amount of time you have just on this planet, you can see why it happens. If everyone had an infinite lifespan, you could wait as long as you wanted for the right person to show up.
It's a fair point, but then it's also down to us to increase our options. Making sure, again, coming back to getting on our purpose, making sure we're taking care of the self. And then that's the thing. So I kind of look at it as, if we do the work internally, the external stuff will naturally follow. Because, so for me, like, one thing I'll tell you about my YouTube channel, the unexpected side effects of this is that I've been able to meet so many people from it, because a lot of people will be like, I live in Essex. Whereabouts are you in the UK? You don't have to give me exact location. North, south?
The south. I'm just north of Southampton.
Right. I was there the other week. Funny enough, I was taking my parents to Southampton because they went on a cruise. I've actually got to pick them up Saturday.
Cool.
So I live just outside of London. I live in a place called Essex. It's about 30 miles outside of it. And so many people that I've coached or I've spoken to, like yourself, just in the comments, they've hit me up. It's like, look, Nick, I'm in London. Do you want to grab a coffee? And I'm like, yeah, cool. I've met so many great people. That's been
helped your social life.
Yeah. So it's really improved. Like, I've been able to meet people that I would have imagined. So, and that is really difficult for me because I'm socially quite awkward. So, but it's actually right. No, fuck it. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to go and meet this person. And I've made some really cool friends.
Fair enough.
And so that's what I'm saying about improving your options. It's not about...
I mean, I've always done the opposite, I suppose. I've always sought out ways to avoid people.
Yeah,
I guess I could be avoidant. I guess when you put it like that.
That in itself is an avoidant. Now, for whatever reason that might be, that's a conversation you have to have with yourself. But the only way, and hey, if you're happy doing that, I mean, like you go for it. If you're
I'm not unhappy, that's for sure. Yeah. I'm not unhappy. I was after the breakup, but once I got over it, I'm just happy doing my own thing again.
Yeah, I'm okay. And
You,
if
you
you're
start
happy,
to forget about it, don't you? And then you
yeah,
just
yeah, absolutely,
go
yeah,
back to who you were, kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. I mean, look, I'm 2.5. Look, I'm 2.5 years out now, and I love being single right now. You know, I've been on plenty of, I've dated plenty of women in the last 2.5 years. You know, I did kind of start a relationship, kind of only last like 4 months, and that ended. There's some dispute between me and who ended it. I say that I ended it. She says that it's mutual, and I'm like, there's no such thing as a mutual breakup. It's whoever initiated the conversation.
Oh, now that's a tough. I disagree
Yeah.
with that.
Oh, we can get into that in a bit. So that's been interesting. So the whole point of like getting back to increasing your options is that I've had to do a lot of uncomfortable shit over the last 2.5 years, and it's been scary. It's been fun. It's been
built your confidence though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So now what used to happen to me. So here's the thing, right? I'll give you an example. Now, I've dated a fair few women over the last 2.5 years. Some of them, it was only 1 date, 2 dates. Some of them, it got sexual and didn't go any further. Some of them, we dated for a couple of months and it didn't go any further, whatever it was. Now, here's the thing. Here's the truly scary thing. 10 years ago, the less confident version of me, the version of me that had no love, no self-esteem, would have settled for any one of those women just because I had a girlfriend. Because, oh my God, I'm never going to get a girlfriend again. I better hold on to it, kind of thing. Now it's the case. I've walked away from each one of them because it's like, right, okay, and it's not like they was bad women. It's not like they did anything nasty. It's just, look, they're perfectly lovely women. They're just not matching what I want in a relationship. They're just not compatible with me. So that's the difference between having a scarcity mindset, what I had 10 years ago, is like, oh, I'll never find another woman like this, to having an abundance mindset. It's like, look, I'm cool being on my own. I'm cool doing my own thing. And I know if I start to talk to a woman, I'm not gonna stutter. I'm not gonna shit myself or anything like that. And when I stopped giving less fucks about this kind of thing, it's like, hey, look, this is me. If you like me, great. If not, okay, I wish you well. Take care. And that's the difference. It's just a mindset.
I've always been like that, except once it's developed to a point where you've got feelings for that person, so something's gone down the line with both of you, and then it breaks up. That's when it's difficult. But yeah, if it's just some random you barely know, who cares?
Yeah, But and again, but just but increasing your options is never a bad thing. And you're right. Look, I'll say, like, there's 4 billion women out there. Yeah, you're never gonna meet every one of those. But what I'm trying to tell people is that, look, because I think people start to suffer from one-itis and they say, oh, that's my soulmate. I totally don't believe in that, because that is saying, well, there's only one woman for me. No, that's bullshit. And it's like, well, get out of this mindset of one-itis. There's 4 billion women out there. Even if you only meet, let's say, 500 of them, statistically, you're going to be compatible. You're going to be more compatible with one of, maybe 10 of those 500. So focus on those. Don't just focus on what is next door or down the road or 5 miles away. It's a big wide world out there. But the only way we're going to meet these people is if we get out there, get out of our house and start getting uncomfortable and start putting ourselves in positions where, all right, yeah, this is a little uncomfortable, but it's going to level me up, kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I mostly agree with that. I'm not so sure about going too far afield. I don't think long distance relationships work.
Oh no, I don't mean that. I just mean, a lot of people. Oh, I found my soulmate. Well, she lives 10 meters down the road. You're literally in that area. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, long distance for me is I've tried it. It doesn't work. I'm not saying people can't make it work.
I get that mindset though, where you're saying about the soul. I've never believed in soulmates either. I'm not, like I said, I'm quite a logical person, so it just doesn't make sense. It sounds like mumbo jumbo to me. But if you've got genuine feelings for someone, it can feel like that, even if you have other options lined up. If you don't have feelings for those people, just because they're options doesn't mean that your feelings just disappear for that person.
Oh no, of course not.
So you can still have one-itis even with options.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the solution to that is. But
Time.
what I'm saying is that we're never going to move on unless we actually get out there and start talking to other people. That's the thing. And when I split up with my ex from 2.5 years ago, I've never loved someone the way I loved her. That was, for me, it was the best relationship I've had. And to this day, I'll still say that's the best relationship I've had. She's still a good woman. I don't have any bad words to say about her. And do I still think about it? Yeah, sometimes, because I haven't come across, someone that was that compatible and had that chemistry with me yet. But I'm no longer on the
Yeah,
search.
that's how I feel about my
Yeah.
ex, except because she monkey branched,
Yeah,
I can't say she was a good person now. If she didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have a leg to stand on there by saying I don't want to talk to her again and stuff like that.
Well,
but
yeah,
she did, and she specifically, I know she did. She went out with a guy the weekend before and didn't even tell me about it. She just suddenly got really distant.
That's shit, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not I mean, so what I try to do in these situations, what I try and encourage people to do is, look, I wouldn't go as far as to say that makes somebody a bad person. What I would say is that, look,
they can't be alone.
Yeah, sorry.
They can't be alone.
Yeah, exactly. So try to look at it as a, like they didn't have the balls to leave the relationship and just brave real world by themselves. No, they had to make sure they had an insurance policy before they did that. That's a reflection.
I'd still take it though. I don't disagree with what you're saying there. That makes sense. That side of it doesn't make them necessarily bad. But I mean, technically, and I think everyone would agree with this, it is cheating. You're seeing someone else before you've broken up.
Yeah,
that's cheating.
I would
on
agree.
The technical definition of it.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, it's probably emotional cheating, which is arguably worse than physical cheating. So here's the thing.
Definitely.
I've had this debate many times, because men and women cheat for very different reasons. And typically speaking, when a man cheats, it's just sexual. When a woman cheats, it's unemotional. Yeah. So
definitely.
You could argue, is the emotional side worse? But if we was to balance it out, it's like, well, no, look, we agreed to be exclusive to each other, so cheating is cheating, it's bad either way. But I think men and women do cheat for very different reasons. And does that make them a bad person? Okay, yeah, maybe. But I would step back and say, wow, okay, you must be really traumatized, or you really have no sense of self-love and self-worth if you've got to do this kind of thing. So I wish you well, because I don't want no part of that.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't want any part of that. At the end of the day, she, regardless of reasons why or the build up to it or whatever, she betrayed me, and I can't forgive betrayal. That's how I see it. Now, I can let her go, and I even when she broke up, I said, I wish you all the happiness in the world. I did mean that. That's not what I mean. It's that I don't want her in my life now because of the betrayal.
Yeah, that's having healthy boundaries for yourself. So because I think when it comes to boundaries, there's got to be non-negotiables, and there's stuff that you can kind of compromise on. But
even if a friend betrays me, they're gone. I'll never speak to them again.
Yeah, no, I can certainly understand that. But I think, if we can get to a place in our own heads to say, well, look, I'm not going to let you back in, but I forgive you regardless, because then for me, you're kind of like, you're not letting them live rent free in your head. You're not giving them your energy. You're not giving them that power to have over you, because, I was cheated on back in 2014, and I held on to that for such a long time. And I mean, it really messed me up for a very long time. Now I look at it.
It damages your ego, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, massively, and it follows you into other relationships as well. But now I look at it as like, wow, okay, you know what? I'm just not, I don't think about it anymore. It doesn't bother me anymore. I don't think all women are cheaters or anything like that. But I look back at it now and think, wow, you know what? You're just, if you had to do that, then all right, okay, you had to do that. That wasn't me. I didn't, maybe I wasn't the best boyfriend, maybe, like what you were saying, I didn't give her the effort that I should have done. I wasn't really in love with the woman. I wasn't really putting that much effort into it because I didn't like her that much. So you could argue, oh, maybe, I contributed to that. But
that's what I meant, by the way, going back to a previous point you said, there's no such thing as mutual breakups. From a certain point of view, I think they're all kind of mutual because you contributed to that breakup happening.
Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, because if I can use my case as a better example. If I wasn't putting in the effort and the empathy and other things that she needed and wanted, then it was kind of, in a way, pushing her to the point of having to break up. So I contributed to the breakup by not being, and maybe I didn't realize it, sure, but it was still, it's like when they say it's not you, it's me, it's kind of both of you. I mean, if I was the perfect boyfriend to her, she wouldn't have left.
Okay, but let's flip that on its head for a second. Let's say you was the perfect partner and she still left, because that's how I've come across cases like that. So would that still be mutual in your head?
No, but equally, have the cases you've come across, have they been biased because they've come from the person who got broken up with saying, yeah, I was brilliant. You don't know the other side.
No, absolutely. You've always only got one side of the story, but I tend to find, because I do get dumpers come my way. I do get a few. Actually, it's actually increasing now, where I get dumpers coming to me. It's like, look, I broke up with my ex and I want them back, but they're not taking me back. That kind of, and it's kind of like a reverse dumpy situation. But typically speaking, most dumpees, I actually tend to find, I'd say about 80% of them that I've coached are actually, one, very receptive to, well, how brutally honest I can be with my feedback. And, I do it with compassion. I talk to them just the way I'm talking to you now. It's like, all right, cool, tell me what's happening, but I'm going to tell you what I think. But they're also, a lot of them, actually, I would say a lot of them blame themselves way too much for the breakup. I'm like, I have to step back and say, look, you need to be kind to yourself here. They contributed. I
did that as well. And I think, look, now it's been a much longer time. Looking back at it, I think that comes from the insecurity and the anxiety and all those negative feelings that come with being broken up with. You end up looking at what could I have done to make this not happen? What could I have done to make me not go through this pain? Yeah, and it's only later on, when that pain's gone and you've kind of moved on with your life, and you look back and you think, oh, well, she wasn't great either.
Yeah, absolutely. But, when we're talking about mutual breakups, so for me, mutual would be, this would be a mutual. So like if you and I was, right now, we're having this discussion and we couldn't find common ground, and we'd say, right, okay, look, let's agree to disagree. All right, cool, right, that's fine. That's a mutual thing. That's a mutual agreement. But if someone's coming to you saying, hey, look, I do not want to be with you romantically anymore, and you're saying, okay, no, let's work this out, then that's very much them ending that relationship.
Agreed. So from the trigger point, I agree with you. But there's the nuance behind that. Yeah, and yes, there could just be the perfect partner, and they broke up anyway. I mean, I guess there's the situation someone has to move away for work. I mean, you can't help that. That's not really mutual either. That's just circumstances.
Yeah, that's breaking up with a situation rather than the partner.
Yeah. So in those situations, I can understand that. But where I'm saying it's more mutual is because there's normally, at least in my experience, there's normally been a leader. Like you and I both said, we were thinking about it 6 months prior.
Yeah.
So there was a build-up. Now, because I was thinking about that 6 months prior, that might have actually caused the breakup, because it might have altered my mindset enough to where I stopped trying or being as caring perhaps as I was in the previous years, because that was in the back of my mind. It might have changed the way I viewed the feelings and just everything. And I think women are very good at picking up on subtleties in social cues as well. And if that changes you very slightly, that you might not notice that, but perhaps she does. And then that gradually has a spiraling effect to where she triggers it. And that part, yes, that bit isn't mutual because she did that. But, you know, I could have easily done that 6 months prior. And that I know that changed my outlook on things. I was not the best partner in the 6 months leading up to the breakup. I know that. So yeah. I was in a way acting, and not on purpose. Actually, this would be the first time I've even admitted this. I was in a way pushing almost for her to do it without realizing it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Now, I've only just thought of that because I didn't really want it to happen, but I think I was just acting in a way where I didn't. I guess if you had that in the back of your mind, you wouldn't care as much about the relationship anymore. And so the way you are and your attitude towards the relationship will have changed.
Yes, fair point.
But just on a subtle level, and those things over a period of time will build up.
Yeah. You've actually given me a lot to think about there. Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I'm just sort of like, you know, processing that in my head. I've never really thought about it on those lines before, and it's I think it's probably something worth exploring. To be fair, I mean, I'd have to do a bit of research on it because I don't think I can, you know, give a sufficient rebuttal to that right now. So, you know, it's an interesting concept, but I would still argue. I mean, so I think there's two different sides to this. To what, you know, what would be considered mutual is that, okay, there's the build up to it, and then there's who initiates the conversation kind of thing. So I guess it's going to come down to what is the individual's definition of what a mutual breakup would be. Now, for me,
that's true.
Yeah. So that's what I think it's come down to. So, you know, I think this is like, you know, semantics at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, I take your point. That's you know,
I do think in terms of the psychology after a breakup, from what I went through, especially, the person who triggers it ends up with more power in both your minds. And hence they become a more valuable person. And hence that triggers a loss of ego, a loss of confidence, self-esteem, anxiety in the dumpee. So from the post part of the breakup, definitely that the person who triggers it is going through a very different process than the person who received that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But you know, like I said, on the flip side of that, I've had a lot of dumpers come to me telling me, how awful that they feel, that they regret dumping that person and they just want them back. That, now, don't get me wrong, I'd say it's probably about 20% of my one-to-one clients, so 80% are dumpies. But you know, it does happen. And
I can't see that happening in my case.
Yeah, like I said, the percentage is low. The percentage is low. But look, I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been the dumper, I've been the dumpy, and when I've dumped someone, I thought, oh shit, did I make the right decision here? You know, that was having a great time, and you know, there have been times where I've wanted to reconcile and I've missed that person, and then you go to reconcile. It's like, oh, now I remember why we broke up. And getting back to one of my original points, why I think so many reconciliations do fail, and it's scary how many that fail. Really, it's because what happens is they resurrect the old relationship, and it's like, look, that died. Bury it and leave it dead. You need to start a new relationship as if that was a new person. And but before that happens,
that's really difficult to do. Sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because you know that person. Yeah, it's not like you're going on a first date.
No, absolutely.
You already know them.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is that, okay, have you done the work on yourself? Has she done the work on herself? Have you both leveled up? Have you both got rid of the contributing factors that made this breakup? So, and that's what happens. So what they do, they dig up the corpse of the old relationship, They try to breathe life back into this decrepit, decaying corpse of a relationship. And it's like, well, that's never going to work. Did you do the work on yourself? And also, so typically speaking, dumpies, they typically go away and do the work on themselves. Well, they have to. They have no choice. They're full of anxiety. They've got the wound. They've got to deal with it right away. Dumpers very seldom do that. Very seldom do that. They don't see anything wrong in what they've done. To them, they're on the high horse. They've got the moral high ground. Well, I left you because you wasn't giving me enough attention and stuff like that.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, when mine broke up with me, she told me she'd gone out and met someone else, and she didn't see anything wrong with that. Nothing. In her mind, that was a perfectly moral thing to do.
Yeah. And so here's the thing, Jody, this is what I'm getting at. Even if you was the perfect boyfriend, right? Even if you did everything that you met all of her needs and all of her expectations, I don't think that would have been enough. Because, so she raises the bar, you match it. She raises the bar again, you match it. And it's going to get to a point where she raises the bar so high.
It's endless,
I can't do any more. And so that...
Well, that's what it got to.
Yeah,
that 6 months prior, I was already thinking, I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted.
Exactly. So she's got an insatiable need. So, and that is an internal problem. And getting back to the original point is that she's an emotional, like, this is what people do. They're emotional vampires. They're getting all love and validation from the partner, and that is not sustainable. And
definitely.
Yeah, and
you keep giving and giving and giving, and then all of a sudden you're just sat there like, I'm done. I can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, and I used to do this all the time. I used to do this every single time, and it gets to a point you got to ask yourself, like, why do my relationships keep fading? It's like, well, I'm the common denominator here. Maybe it's me. So
I thought that as well.
Yeah. So,
I said to you, I'm mid-40s and no relationships worked out yet. So,
yeah, and so we do have to start looking internally if that's the case, And like for me, my anxiety used to cause a lot of problems, and what I would do, I would start off having a great life, like a great single life. I'd get with a girl, abandon everything that came before that.
That's always the way.
Yeah,
they come along when you're having an amazing time being single.
Exactly, but that's the thing. When you're having an amazing time, you're single. You're on your purpose. You're out there doing adventurous stuff. You're confident. You're sexy. You're doing all these things. That's who they fell in love with. And then we throw ourselves on our sword. We sacrifice all of that, and then we become someone that they did not fall in love with. So if we maintain that sense of self, that sense of single life, or whatever you want to call it, that rogue-like quality, it's far more likely to succeed. Because what happens, and this happens to a lot of my male clients, and it certainly happened to me once or twice, where you'd be dating someone, and like the woman would be saying, and men have done this as well. It's not just one way. But I can only speak, as a guy, and a woman saying, "Oh, I'd like it if you calm down, or I'd like it if you do this, and I like you do it." So there's what they think that they want, and you do it, and then they get repulsed by what you've actually become. So the sad thing is, if you've actually stayed the person you were, the one with the rough edges, the one that they actually fell in love with, the one that is saying, right, I'm on my purpose, I know how to lead, I know how to protect, I know how to provide, that's more likely to succeed, because you're taking care of your self-love, validation, everything that comes with that confidence, and just a natural, just a natural confidence comes with that. But then we abandon all of that, and that for me is the problem, is that we are letting go of everything that came before that.
I don't think I can comment on this, because I don't think I've ever done that.
Well, okay. So, yeah, I mean, if you've never done that's great. But I think,
mine have failed anyway, and I don't think I've ever done that. I think, if anything, I've always stayed too independent still.
Yeah. So there's a balance to be had. There is a balance. So what I'm saying is, yes, you've got to compromise somewhat. You've got to compromise somewhat. So, but I think naturally, when you get into a relationship, yes, you've got to reduce the amount of hours that you spend with your friends and on personal projects. What I'm saying is, totally abandon it. But at the same time, if you're going to date someone and you're like, look, girl, I'm only giving you 5 hours a week, probably not going to work. I'm not saying you only gave 5 hours a week. I know I'm just being facetious here, and I'm just giving an extreme example.
There might have been sometimes I did that. Like I said, I can look back and I can critique myself as well.
Yeah, and that's good. But the fact that you can do that, Jody, that self-awareness is actually really powerful, because you can step back and say, right, okay, I need to tweak this about myself. I need to do some inner work. Okay, so, you know, it's a case of, right, okay, why am I so private and you know, just shut off a little bit? And that's okay to be that way. But if you've got a woman and she's saying, look, you know, you're saying, look, I only want to see you.
I think that's why relationships have just kind of happened to me. They like the mysterious side to begin with.
Yeah.
But then you keep doing that because that's who you are.
Yeah.
And look, then they eventually get fed up with it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would argue that you got to maintain some kind of mystery as well. You don't want to give everything. You know, but at the same time, there's got to be a bit of compromise. There's got to be a bit of give, you know, and also sitting down, and I'm talking like within the first few dates, discussing needs, wants, chemistry, compatibility, political beliefs, religious beliefs. Do you want marriage? Do you want kids? This has to be on the table from really early on. But this is what
I think that's one of the benefits of dating. Whereas, like I said, I've never really dated. It's just kind of happened, and you're kind of just hanging out more and more, and you're just chatting about general stuff, and both of you are starting to develop feelings, and you know, a kiss eventually happens. Maybe you're drinking or something, and then they spend the night, and then what do you know? Suddenly you're in a relationship. That's how it's always happened for me.
But you can still have that conversation early on in that relationship. You can still say, right, okay, look, let's talk compatibility here, because for me, compatibility comes down to two things. It comes down to maturity, which I think we briefly discussed on the channel, on the comments, and it comes down to values. That's what it comes down to me. So, like, for example, look, I'm 38 now. I'm not going to date a woman that's 25. Now, she might be perfectly lovely. She might be, you know, a well-rounded woman, but with life experience, she's not going to be on my level. So I need someone that's going to match me and on that side. So a 25-year-old might be physically more attractive than a 35-year-old just through nature and, you know, like getting older. Absolutely. But are you going to stimulate?
It's difficult to stop, though, isn't it? Because there is that biological side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it comes down to balance. So do I just want to go for a pretty face, or do I want a woman that is still, you know, in shape and looking after herself, but she's got a brain on her? You know, so for me, having these kind of conversations, like having these kind of conversations you and I are having, like with a potential partner, is very important to me, because, like, well, I want to be able to express my thoughts and my ideas without you getting butthurt about it, and I will do the same for you. That's hugely important. That is hugely important for me, and you only gain that through, you know, experience and you know, just, you know, getting out of your own way. If I was having this conversation with you 10 years ago, I'd probably be shouting and screaming at them. It's like, right, what do you mean you don't agree with me? You know, it'd be kind of like, you know, it's like,
well, oh yeah, you get more experience, don't you, with life? It's just one of those things. You get wiser as you get older, and I don't think we did that properly. You know, when we met, obviously it was 7 years ago. I think, well, where did we met? It was when I was 33, 34, something like that. Yeah, because we're together for 7 years. It's already been over another year anyway. So yeah, something like that anyway. But I mean, we only found out like halfway through that relationship that we had different political views.
Right.
Vastly opposite political views.
That can be messy. I never really appreciated how messy that can be with political views. It's probably because I'm not that political. I'm just like, well, I don't really care. But I've definitely got more political lately, given the state of the country and stuff that's going on.
That's a whole other conversation.
Oh yeah, that's a conversation for another day. Absolutely. But yeah, it's definitely that can be a sore subject that can really be devastating. But again,
but when you do it too late, like I agree 100% with what you're saying. Maybe we should have had that conversation earlier, because it would have hurt a hell of a lot less.
Yeah.
But that was a rift between us. I would say things, and she'd get annoyed at me, and vice versa, because we'd have vastly different views on certain topics.
That's crazy.
But we were already too far in, where the feelings were so intense at that point. You know.
Yeah,
we were both in love.
Yeah. And that's why these conversations have to be had. But I am of the opinion, look, my ex was very God fearing, and I'm not God fearing or religious by any means. I'm very like analytical, scientific, that kind of thing. And
That's interesting. My ex was a Catholic, and I'm an atheist.
Really? Yeah, interesting. Yeah. That can provide some interesting conversations. And and I mean, I didn't care one way or another if she believed in God or not. That didn't bother me. But we did have some intense discussions, and most of the time, it was, a respectful discussion. And I think even with politics, religion, whatever, we have to get to a point where we can still like stay true to our own beliefs, but still fully explore what they're saying without abandoning our beliefs, without getting butthurt about it. It's like, okay, so like a good example is what we were just talking about what mutual means, and it's like, okay, right, you've got a point now. I need to go and explore that now. I need to go and explore that in my head. And even though I don't fully agree with you, it's a case of, right, well, you could be right here. Let me go.
Yeah.
So I think that's where people need to get with having these kind of conversations, especially in relationships, because political, religious, it doesn't matter. It's like, I only know of one couple, like one's on the left and one's on the right, and they're with each other, and they discuss ideas. They don't make it personal. They don't have personal attacks against each other, which I think that's probably, one of the keys to a successful relationship. Is that, all right, cool, we disagree, but we love each other.
Yeah. That worked for us for a while until later on, and you'd just be watching the news, but you'd both have a very different view of what's happening on the news, for instance, because you're both coming from a different point of view, and then your point of view might hurt that person, and then you're realizing you're just having to keep quiet to keep that person happy.
Yeah,
which isn't a good thing. But equally, whilst I agree with what you're saying, I've found in relationships in the past, if you have too much in common, it's boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like I said, I was an atheist and a Catholic. That was never an issue, but we had some. I think if we weren't that way, I don't think that relationship ever would have got started, because we ended up having debates about religion for several months going into it, and I was starting to research the things she was talking about and coming up with different ideas, and we'd watch debates online about it and all sorts. And if it wasn't for that difference, it would have just been, yeah, I'm an atheist. Oh yeah, me too. End of conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We don't fall in love with perfection. We fall in love with the rough edges. That's what we fall in love with.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and that's what we need. We need some similarities, but we need some differences as well. So, but going back to what you said about politics, is like you'd be watching the news and you'd stay quiet in fear of hurting the other person's feelings. Now, I read a book. I finished reading a book last week. So I've been reading so many books lately. It's called the Road Less Traveled, and it's by Scott Peck. And there's a very good part in the book, and he talks about the disorder. Is it the disorder of responsibility? Yeah, a disorder of responsibility. Now, Mark Manson talks a lot about this as well, and it's a case of, no one can hurt you or make you angry or whatever unless you give them permission to. And basically, what that is like, look, I'm not responsible for your interpretation of my words, and vice versa, kind of thing. How you react, how you act is on you. And unless, of course, someone's making a deliberate personal attack, but and which is not cool.
Oh no, we never did that. We never did that.
Yeah. But if you just,
it's just different views on topics.
Yeah, if you just got a different view of someone and they're getting butthurt over it, then that's their responsibility. And we shouldn't have to walk on eggshells. We should be able to say, and this is the whole thing with freedom of speech. It's a double-edged sword. Freedom of speech means exactly that. That means you can say anything you want, and whether you agree or disagree with it, that's what freedom of speech really is. It is a double-edged sword. So that means
we don't really have freedom of speech, though. And that's another conversation.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. But but what I'm saying is like the freedom to, let's just say,
freedom of thought for sure.
Yeah, the freedom of thought. Look, this is my opinion, and I'm going to say it. So if people, and I was actually, funny enough, I haven't responded to it yet, but the video I put out yesterday, a lady commented on it and saying I was being toxic about how certain ways of dealing with a rebound relationship, and it was like 5 tips of how to deal with a rebound. And tip number 5, I said, go to your local shop, get some popcorn, warm it up, and watch the car crash happen. Now, obviously, I'm being humorous and I'm satire, and I'm just being hyperbolic. But she come at me in the comments saying, oh, I'm being toxic. I'm preying on other people's misery and stuff like that. And it was like, well,
how's that toxic?
Yeah. Well, so basically, she's interpreted it in her way, based on her worldview. Okay, which is fine. But I've made one response to her. She's come back, which I haven't had time to respond yet because she responded just before this conversation started. And so, but in my first response, I've had to say, look, like, obviously, tip number 5, I'm not telling people to go out to their local superstore and buy popcorn. Obviously, that is just a metaphor to say, right, if someone is in a rebound or they're monkey branched, sit back and don't worry about it because it will probably fail. So get on your purpose, kind of thing. And I've actually told her, hey, look, I'm not responsible for your interpretation. That's not my fault. That's not my problem. You've read that. You've listened to it. That's fine. I'm happy to discuss it. But it's kind of like, all right, cool. Don't get butthurt. You know? So that's what I think about that kind of thing. It's like, you need to be with someone, I think, that you can have a conversation about anything. And I mean, absolutely anything. Agree, disagree, indifferent, doesn't matter. And they won't get butthurt about it. Okay, every now and then, you've been a fucking
I don't think I've ever found that.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. And I think if you can, and that's when like a relationship is largely effortless, because if you're finding yourself having to put weight, it's kind of like cold fusion. If you have to put like a ton of energy into it just to get like a 0.5% energy out kind of thing. If that's the case, that's really, really bad. So if you're like pushing, a bike uphill with no wheels at the start of a relationship, that's going to be incredibly challenging. But a relationship that just works because you've got that compatibility and chemistry, it should be like a bike going downhill with rocket boosters, because it's so frictionless. And that means, right, we can talk about anything, we can agree, we can disagree, and it's cool.
I would agree with that. I mean, I would say that my last relationship, it was mostly like that when it was more the light-hearted conversations, for sure. We would have a lot of fun together, but though there was obviously, I had different views on religion, different views on politics. I'm trying to think what else. Those were really the main ones, and probably differences in certain outlooks on other aspects on life too, I guess. But yeah, it was those slightly deeper things.
Yeah.
Where you might think, if I say this, it's going to wind her up. You don't want to wind your partner up, so.
No, that's
because you care about them, so you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I've certainly been in situations like that, and even recently I've been in situations like that where you're treading on eggshells. You're deliberately avoiding the conversation just to have a quiet life, kind of thing. And when you start looking at it, it's like, right, this isn't me. I'm not someone that avoids these kind of conversations. I'm happy to talk to anybody. I'm happy if you disagree with me. I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to be right. I'm not trying to be wrong. I'm just trying to engage with the idea. And
I mean, I would do that as well. And I'd be happy to have those conversations. Well, I think what I'm saying when I said most of the time it was fine was that didn't come up as often as I'm probably making it sound. It was just on the odd occasion that we might be seeing something on TV that it would trigger, me to want to say a comment. So it wasn't, all the time.
Yeah, but it's enough.
But most of the time, it was that downhill ride kind of thing. What I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. But I think what you're getting at there is that on the odd occasions that those times did happen, it was enough. The reaction was probably to a point where it was enough. Oh, I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to have that conversation again.
Yeah. There were times I would I'd be around hers and it would happen, and then I'd be like, I think I need to go home.
Yeah. Wow.
So
that's crazy. Oh man, right, Jody, I do need to wrap this up because I've got a client in 4 minutes that I've got.
Yeah, no problem. This has gone on a lot longer than I thought it would.
I normally prepare for a call about 15 minutes beforehand, so I'm going to have to get my skates on. But listen, buddy, look, I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for coming on.
No problem. I've enjoyed it too.
Yeah, it's been really cool, man. I appreciate you, just being honest, really, and it's been great that we can discuss these ideas. I've really enjoyed it, so thank you very much. And
so have I. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, buddy. Look, stay in touch, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, cheers.
Man, take it easy. I hope you you're on your journey, you're on your purpose, you're getting where you need to be, and man, it sounds like you're doing fine anyway. So
I'll get there for sure.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Take it easy.
All right.
See you later.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.